shares how today's economic blackout is impacting corporations and small businesses.
We have an all-of-the-above energy strategy that puts the focus on making America energy dominant.
That's Republican Senate Majority Leader John Thune making a vow to block wind projects and bring back natural gas, what that means for the environment and the economy.
And Central New York navigates Trump administration federal funding cuts, how the changes are impacting Syracuse University and Micron Technology.
As the markets sunset for the week, we're signing on to break it all down. Welcome to Market Shares. I'm Peter Elliot.
And I'm Sean Dempsey. Happy Friday, everyone, and happy Friday to you.
Happy Friday to you, Sean. It is not a happy Friday for much of Wall Street. As the closing bell just rang, let's take a look at how some of the major indexes ended up this week in the red, Sean. This is becoming a pattern now, especially for the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. For the NASDAQ, its worst week since 2023, down more than 5%. The S&P 500 faring a little better, down 2.43%. And then in the context of this week, the Dow is the winner, down close to 0.2%. And it was a volatile week for Wall Street, Sean, but got one last jolt this afternoon following that dramatic clash between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky and President Donald Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance in the Oval Office.
Yeah, you're completely right, Peter. And when looking at the S&P 500, Trump also announced the proposed tariffs of 25% on Mexico and Canada will take effect on March 4th. And then looking at the NASDAQ as well, NVIDIA reported earnings this past week. The stock is down about 12.5% this week, which really shook up the broader markets of the NASDAQ and the S&P 500. They actually beat Wall Street's expectations, but really not enough.
Right, and a lot of that slowdown this week, the red you're seeing, a lot of that just generally related to fears about rising inflation and consumer sentiment. So we are seeing kind of a slide here in the opening weeks of the Trump administration. Let's move on to some of the stocks we're looking at this week in our Market Movers segment. Let's start with Sweetgreen, a company you know for its $17 bowls. It's looking green right now. Green is the salad, but it had kind of a turbulent week. Down on Wednesday after it reported disappointing earnings. It kind of rallied back on Thursday, Sean. But this is a company that has struggled over the last couple of years. It has not been profitable in more than 10 years. Yep. It is taking a step back in its road to profitability.
Sweetgreen is a super interesting company, right? Because it's sort of in that like Chipotle Cava category where it's in like this fast casual. So how can they really differentiate themselves from a company like Chipotle or like a Cava? But like you mentioned, the stock really just hasn't been doing well lately. Down 47% from its all-time high, which was back in November. Then also Sweetgreen recorded its fourth quarter earnings with results falling short of analyst expectations. So it's going to be really interesting to see what they do for this year.
It is similar, like you mentioned, that mold of Cava and Chipotle, except it really specializes in those major American cities. You don't see any in Syracuse or at all in upstate New York. It's very heavy in New York
City.
In New York City, of course, but none in upstate New York or Syracuse. And that's kind of the way it is. It has 246 stores across the country. It plans to open 40 more stores this year. So it is not perturbed by its stock performance so far. We will see how it moves moving forward. But overall, the restaurant industry, a bellwether to look for as we kind of analyze this broader economy. When people stop going out to eat, then the economy is not in a great spot. Let's move on to another company that is down on the week. It has been a rough one for server maker Supermicro. Its stock down 20% on the week, Sean, about $11 a share.
Yeah, it's super interesting because some of their executives, actually the co-founder and senior vice president, plans to sell 46,000 shares, which comes to a market value of about $2.3 million. And now we don't know exactly why that they decide to do that, but it's never really a good sign when you have executives of a top company like Supermicro decide to sell their shares, Peter.
Yeah, I'm looking at our clock here. It's about 4 minutes until we mentioned AI. That might be a new record for us. But this is the kind of company that makes the server racks that enable NVIDIA's kind of graphics processing units to operate. And it wasn't just moving down because of kind of China and AI. It was because of potential some SEC violations. The company belatedly filed financial disclosures with the SEC. It is now back in compliance, it says. It's not the first time that this company has been kind of run afoul of the SEC. Its former CFO was charged in connection with accounting violations back in 2020. It's been a turbulent last few months for this company. The stock is worth about half as much as it was last year, but still it's optimistic moving forward as there still is a lot of demand for those server rooms and those data center infrastructure. That demand remains high. Let's move on to our final mover of the week, and it is Warner Brothers Discovery. We featured this stock a lot before.
Yep.
in this segment. Usually that arrow is pointed down, Sean. This week it's in the green.
Yeah, the stock up about 6% this week. Super interesting stuff. It added about 6.4 million global streaming subscribers in the fourth quarter to a total of about 117 million. Fourth quarter revenue for streaming segment has been anchored by their flagship service, Max, which totaled about $2.6 billion. Also interesting to note, Warner Discovery is losing its rights to the NBA coming up recently. They're going to be partnered with NBC, but still in the green. So.
And a big week, big month rather, due in large part to its new series Dune Prophecy. That is the 6-episode prequel spin-off of the popular sci-fi franchise. We've seen this with Netflix. All it really takes is one hit series to get you back in the good graces of Wall Street. That's exactly what Dune Prophecy has done. No Chalamet, no Zendaya, no problem. None of the major stars from those first 2 movies are featured in this new series. That doesn't matter. It brought a lot of subscribers to the platform. That's a big deal, especially when Warner Brothers Discovery's legacy platforms, CNN, TBS, TNT, like you mentioned with the sports, they have struggled as of late. It is not attracting a lot of ad revenue, and that segment is declining. They're pushing towards the future. It sees that film and TV segment as really part of its future, and it's got that 3rd Dune movie coming up in the future in 2026. Looking forward to that one. Well, you might have seen this on social media after you were finished watching Dune Prophecy, a 24-hour economic blackout. It's underway today as consumers protest the elimination of corporate diversity, equity, and inclusion efforts. There is a group in charge of this that is called People's Union USA. It's behind the effort and encouraging participants to shop at small businesses and use cash. Grace Elford is following this effort here, and she joins us in studio. Grace, is this boycott going to make a difference on a large scale?
Well, thanks, Peter. While it's unclear whether or not the stock market will be affected, that isn't the goal of the boycott. Consumers are trying to get big corporations to really notice what they're doing and notice the impact of everyday Americans against DEI layoffs. The organizer of the movement, influencer John Schwartz, says he is for the people. In a quote, he said, "We're all exhausted. We're all tired. Enough is enough. We can't sit back and watch these people boast about their wealth. And then we're all sitting at home in anxiety and fear, not knowing how we're going to make it till the end of the month." End quote. I also spoke to an Onondaga community college professor about the potential effects of a one-day blackout.
I think the one-day thing is, I think you just call that a start. It's a lot easier to get people to sign on to do this for one day than for, millions to cancel, their Prime subscriptions. But these things can be effective. A company might want to nip this in the bud. They don't want to see how far this can go.
Organizers of the movement are encouraging people to avoid chain restaurants, ordering online, and even filling up their gas tanks. We'll be tracking the effects of the boycott and keeping you updated. That's all for me. Back to you, Sean and Peter.
You're gambling with the lives of millions of people. You're gambling with World War III. You're gambling with World War III.
This afternoon, Trump had a fiery exchange with President Zelensky amidst environmental rollbacks and a minerals deal with Ukraine. Where relations stand when we come back.
You quit smoking and thought, that's that. But here's the thing about lung cancer. By the time you see the symptoms, it could be too late. But now, there's a new scan that can detect lung cancer early, when it's more curable. If you smoked, get scanned. Talk to your doctor or learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Taking care of a family member can lead to plenty of questions. Fortunately, there's a place to get the answers, for them and for you. Find articles, tips, and tools from experts and others who have been in your place. The Caregiving Resource Center at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to Market Shares. Peter Elliott alongside Sean Dempsey. Sean, this story hits close to home for us. 500 senior students here at SU's Newhouse School of Communications could be entering a turbulent media job market as companies continue cutting costs. This week, MSNBC overhauled its lineup, canceling Joy Reid's afternoon show and laying off nearly 100 employees. Meanwhile, the Washington Post just laid off 4% of its staff. It lost $77 million last year. Nearly 15,000 jobs across the media and entertainment industries have been eliminated in the last year.
As the Trump administration shakes up the White House press rotation, another campaign trail promise is going into effect. Here to tell us more about Trump's push for national energy production is Verna. Roman?
Yeah, thanks, guys. Well, many phrases have defined the Trump campaign and presidency, but one is being used more than ever right now: drill, baby, drill. Since taking the office, the commander-in-chief has signed several executive orders about energy. In fact, one of his first acts was declaring a national energy emergency. This week, he signed another order halting the sale of offshore wind turbines. Now, Trump has been a longtime critic of wind energy. He's on the record saying that turbines lower property values, destroy the environment, and are more costly than they are worth. His biggest issue, though, is that it takes away from fossil fuels. In addition to halting turbine sales, he also lifted a pause on liquefied natural gas exports that was put in place by former President Biden. These exports are planned to go to Europe and Asia as an alternative to Russian oil and gas. All of these initiatives are part of Trump's plan to, quote, unleash American energy. Other energy policies outlined in the order include encouraging the expansion of offshore oil drilling, increasing the extraction of domestic rare earth minerals, eliminating state-imposed EV mandates, and allowing consumers more options when buying energy appliances. Now, this begs the question, how will these policies affect climate change? With 2024 being the warmest year on record and Trump pulling out of the Paris Agreement, this year likely won't be much better.
For joining us here at the desk.
Roman, first question for you is what can consumers expect to see with all of these changes so far?
Yeah, well, it's really interesting because we oftentimes think of energy as a nationwide issue, but these changes could really affect specific geographic areas, especially when we talk about coastlines. Blue states along the coastlines, we could see the offshore wind energy limits really take effect there and hurt the economy. But towards the south, near the Gulf of Mexico, those red states that are relying on oil, as this increase in oil drilling comes, we could see an economical boost in those areas. And now the U.S. already produces the most fossil fuels, but Trump created a department led by Doug Burgum to increase our share even further.
Now, we talked about that clash in the Oval Office between President Donald Trump, VP J.D. Vance, and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, all about the Russia-Ukraine war. Going back to that, in those overseas natural gas exports, what could we see? What's the future of those?
Well, yeah, as you mentioned, Trump and Zelensky met in the Oval Office earlier today, and they really went at it. They fought about peace and how Putin should be involved in negotiations, if at all. Now, one provision that Trump mentioned was allowing the U.S. to access Ukraine's mineral deposits. Now, again, those rare earth minerals is already a domestic point that Trump made in his Unleashing American Energy plan. But after their meeting, that plan to extract resources from Ukraine for the U.S. actually never got signed.
All right, Roman, thanks so much for following that story.
Great stuff as always. Closer to home, Destiny USA hosted its first in-person job fair on Wednesday for students and locals. This comes as malls in the U.S. struggle to draw consumers, with over 1,000 U.S. shopping malls closing their doors for good every year. Chief executive of Destiny USA's parent company, Stephen Conjol, says that Destiny USA continues to perform exceptionally well. We are in the process of bringing in exciting new tenants and are very optimistic about the future. 2 other job fairs are planned for August 16th and October 5th.
Well, Apple shareholders rejected a proposal to scrap the company's diversity, equity, and inclusion programs by a resounding 97% majority. The proposal was being pushed by a conservative think tank. The group argued that Apple's DEI programs exposed Apple and its shareholders to legal risks in the wake of executive orders signed by President Trump.
Apple CEO Tim Cook defended the initiative, stressing that Apple, quote, will continue to create a culture of belonging. Apple's stock outperformed all of its Magnificent 7 peers this month, up around 1%, but down almost 3% year to date.
Back here on campus, Syracuse University held its Micron Day on Tuesday, with company officials facing questions about the future of semiconductor manufacturing as the CHIPS Act hangs in the balance. Olivia Rodriguez is here with us in studio. Olivia?
Hey Peter, well this Tuesday the university held their first ever Micron Day, a showcase of the innovation and technological investment being made in upstate New York. The event featured talks from Micron's senior executives and opportunity for students to engage with the semiconductor giant. And for SU Vice Chancellor Mike Hain, the event was yet another stepping stone in moving the university towards the future.
At the end of the day, all of this is driven by creating opportunity for SU students. If we miss the opportunity as a university to lean into what really is a generational opportunity to transform Central New York for the benefit of everyone who lives here, shame on us.
Well, however, this opportunity isn't as secure as the city might hope. From House Speaker Mike Johnson saying that House Republicans will probably try to repeal the CHIPS and Science Act, to President Trump last month calling the CHIPS and Science Act, quote, so bad. There was a lot of speculation as to what Micron's future will look like. Onondaga County Executive Ryan McMahon doesn't seem to think that Micron will be severely impacted, saying, quote, I don't think it will impact our project because a project labor agreement is already signed, and some other things, like childcare on site and some of the environmental provisions, Micron likely has to do the state Green Chips program. Hain also said that Trump administration's related cuts to DEI programs may set a precedent for Micron's future.
So it's impossible to sit here now and say anything about what we will or will not, can or cannot do, because all of this is now in the courts.
All right, Olivia, so if the CHIPS Act is killed by the Trump administration, what does that mean for the future of this Micron project here in Clay in Central New York?
Well, Peter, as of right now, there's going to be like a little effect. Micron already, as Ryan McMahon said, is signing several agreements. They've already agreed to use labor unions, they've agreed to buy land for a child care center in Clay, and they've also committed to 100% renewable energy. New York Senator Kristen Gillibrand also even said that Trump doesn't technically have the authority yet to step in and change chips. This is actually grounds for legal action. So as of right now, it's really up in the air, and there's little action that it could take at the moment.
Olivia, are we seeing any effects of these federal funding cuts so far?
Well, at the moment, we're starting to see a couple of things definitely here in SU. The SU Office of Diversity and Inclusion has already changed a little bit of their website. There's less references to diversity on the entire page, and it's been cut from the mission statement totally. It could also change funding, as in 2023, SU was given $250 million in federal grants. And if Trump decides to take effect after these DEI programs, if SU doesn't fully cut them, we don't know what that could mean. This could change what we are seeing in terms of funding, and Chancellor Kent Severud also said that we are trying to hold on to our long-standing values, but we don't know what that's going to mean in terms of how much funding SU might get if we hold on to these DEI programs.
Thanks so much for joining us, Olivia. Coming up, Governor Kathy Hochul announced a new initiative in response to DOGE cutting government jobs. What this means for New York State federal workers and the Syracuse community. Stay with us.
Women are bad with money.
It's what the world's been saying for centuries. But now, we've got something to say.
Save it. Save the old-fashioned advice, the empty excuses. It's all worthless, unlike us.
To our fellow females, it is time to save ourselves by saving our money.
Contributing to our futures, investing in our independence.
Until we're no longer 80%
more likely than men to live in poverty in retirement.
So again, we say to that,
Save it. The falsehoods, the feelings of fault. Then the funds.
learn how to save for your retirement at wesaysaveit.org.
Dad?
Just 1 minute, okay?
Hey, Bobo, do trees tell each other stories?
I'm sorry. I'm afraid I don't know that.
Hey, why don't we go find out? Listen.
Do clouds take naps?
I couldn't tell you.
Can birds draw pictures?
I don't have an answer for that.
Dad, do stars visit their friends?
Look!
federal government might say you're fired, but here in New York, we say you're hired. In fact, we love federal workers. Whatever your skills, we value public service. Check out potential jobs at ny.gov/WeWantYou. Come join our New York State family.
Governor Kathy Hochul's You're Hired initiative pushes back against the Department of Government Efficiency's federal layoffs, aiming to retain displaced workers in New York. Her response underscores the state's commitment to public service amid widespread job cuts. In Syracuse, VA Medical Center Director Mark Murdoch has resigned after accepting a federal buyout, joining at least 40,000 workers taking the administration's deferred resignation package. His exit raised concerns for the hospital, which serves over 50,000 veterans. Local union leaders also report probationary employees have already been fired. Representative John Mannion condemned the layoffs as destructive and counterproductive, pledging to support federal workers. Meanwhile, labor unions are suing the U.S. Office of Personnel Management, arguing it lacks congressional authority for these firings. A federal judge in San Francisco heard arguments this week.
40,000 workers have accepted a severance package. How did so many people quit in mass layoffs, basically?
These workers, like Mark Murdoch, received an email titled "A Fork in the Road." The email was crafted by the head of Doge, Elon Musk, and included an offer to federal workers to continue pay until September 30th of this year in exchange for immediate resignation. This is similar to when Musk sent an email with the same heading to Twitter employees after purchasing the company in 2022.
Brennan, you mentioned the Office of Personnel Management. Have there been any updates in that case?
Yeah, so the U.S. District Judge William Alsup heard arguments of unions led by the American Federation of Government Employees this Thursday. The prosecution succeeded in arguing that the Office of Personnel Management doesn't have the authority to carry out these firings in other agencies. Judge Alsup ordered OPM to rescind their directives, deeming the terminations illegal. From federal court, Judge Alsup states, OPM has no authority, quote, under any statute in the history of the universe to hire and fire employees at another agency.
Brennan, will we see more federal layoffs as Musk continues his efficiency efforts?
There's a chance we will see continued layoffs as the Trump administration looks to shift American industries to the private sector. The 24 agencies that are represented in the lawsuit against OPM will be safe from directed and targeted firings under the judge's order, but if more terminations are to occur, we can see performance issues and other workaround excuses being utilized.
All right, Brennan, we appreciate you following that story, those layoffs hitting close to home here in Syracuse. Well, there's an update on the future of the Crucible steel plant in Geddes. A Penn-Yan-based company, Lauder Metal Technologies, is making a bid to take over the plant. Lauder submitted a bid of $1.4 million to buy some of Crucible's assets. A bankruptcy court judge previously approved a bid by a French company, Aerosteel, to purchase parts of its business for $17.3 million. Lauder says it will provide cash for all of Crucible's existing assets. Students looking to get away from the dining hall and save money can participate in Syracuse's Dining Week, back for its 21st year. Running through March 14th, restaurants are offering 3-course dinners for $40 or less and 2-course lunches for under $15. Favorites like Dinosaur Barbecue, that's always great, Possibilities, and Water Street Bagel will all be participating.
And DoorDash is set to pay a settlement of $1.7 million in gratuity following a lawsuit filed in New York. The company is accused of using a pay model where Dashers were able to see the amount they were being paid before they completed an order. This model allowed DoorDash to use tips to offset the amount of base pay delivery drivers were receiving. Many Syracuse students have worked for the company. The settlement allows money to be rightfully returned to their pockets. The settlement also aims to ensure DoorDash continues to use transparent payment practices in the near future.
Well, you could dash some Dave's Hot Chicken to your door, and that California-based company is turning up the heat as it enters talks with a potential buyer. Rourke Capital, a private equity firm with a portfolio that includes Auntie Anne's, Arby's, and Carvel, could be adding the Nashville-style hot chicken franchise to its roster for a $1 billion order. Dave's does have a location close to campus in Cicero. The company says its restaurants won't be impacted by that potential acquisition. Dave's has come a long way in just a few short years. It was started in 2017 by 4 friends in LA. It has now grown into a global brand with 270 locations across 6 countries, generating over $1 billion in annual sales.
I know a lot of my friends like Dave's Hot Chicken, Peter. But coming up, Amazon introduces the next generation of Alexa, a conversation with the virtual personal assistant herself when we come back.
Fancy pants peanut butter? A big screen television? You haven't even bought a sofa yet. A motorcycle? When your father finds out, he's gonna flip his shoes with 2 buckles? What do you even need 2 buckles for? Mr. Big Shot, buying whiskey shots for everybody in the bar. From the looks of it, I'd say nobody even remembers. Feed the pig.
Dad, they took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back to Market Shares. Sean Dempsey alongside Peter Elliot. Amazon's Alexa is becoming Alexa Plus with new artificial intelligence features rolling out this week.
You activated it right there. The company considers its smart speakers to be a loss leader. They have never been profitable, but they are popular. Its newly upgraded chatbot will be powered by Amazon's large language model. It's all in an effort to encourage Alexa owners to order food, shop, and even buy concert tickets on the device instead of just asking, "Hey Alexa, what's the weather?" or for it to play music.
In Syracuse, it's 37 degrees Fahrenheit with cloudy skies.
There you
That's
go.
accurate.
You can look for snowy, rainy weather with a low of 30 degrees.
I think you could run that every day. You can look for snowy, rainy weather here in Syracuse just about every day. But I think that's what a lot of people use Alexa for. This is courtesy of our producer, Gabby Graybush. She says she uses Alexa to ask, it to play music and ask for the weather, set a timer. But
I feel like that's like the very common
I think
stuff,
that's
right?
very common. But Amazon wants its users to do more. It wants it to shop here. We should have a little conversation with Alexa, I think, right?
Sure. Yeah. All right. First question here, since it's Market Shares and
Of course.
business show. Alexa, what are the top 3 performing stocks today?
Here's something I found on the web. According to CNBC.com, the top 10 companies paying common and preferred dividends on a trailing 12-month basis are AT&T, Exxon, GE, Microsoft, Chevron, J&J, Pfizer, P&G, Wells Fargo, and Philip Morris.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if she exactly answered my question.
Not exactly the question. A little bit of a dodge there from Alexa. Yeah. So we can't exactly do our jobs. That's good to know. We will not be replaced immediately here on Market Shares. Let's ask another one here. Alexa, just a fun one here. Alexa, what is your favorite movie?
The Empire Strikes Back is my all-time favorite. It's impressive. Most impressive. For more Star Wars fun, just say, use the Force.
Interesting. Well, it seems like Alexa is a big Star Wars fan.
It is. I didn't know that. We're learning something new every day.
I
It's a
know.
little personality for artificial intelligence. That is pretty fun. I wish we could ask it whether Syracuse will have success in the ACC tournaments or March Madness. I don't know if it will. But we'll see if more consumers will start to ask Alexa for shopping or just Alexa for what to do on a Friday in Syracuse. Well, that's all the time we have for you today on this episode of Market Shares. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, X rather, and Instagram at CitrusTV News, and like us on Facebook. I'm Peter Elliot.
And I'm Sean Dempsey. Have a great night, Syracuse.
Thanks for watching.